everybody. I'm Professor Geraldine Glass, and welcome to the Sacred Science of Sound. I am excited to have today sound healing pioneer, Biofield tuning fork master, new thought leader, and I've just heard electric guitar player coming to us from Jamaica, where she has been quarantined, Eileen McKusick. Welcome, Eileen.
Thanks, Geraldine. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So great. Eileen, you were part of the first Sacred Science of Sound online and part of the live event, and your work has just been part of the structure of where this is going. So I'm so glad that you're with us again. For those who may not know about biofield tuning, could you give us like an overview? What is the human biofield? What is biofield tuning? And then we'll go out from there.
The human biofield, what I've been saying lately, others might disagree with me somewhat, but I believe that it is our body's electrical system. Our human bodies have electric current that runs through them. Anything that has an electric current running through it has a magnetic field around it. The magnetic field of the body has been documented for decades through a squid magnetometer, which picks up very sensitive magnetic fields. So it's kind of known that we're electric and magnetic, but we've been so focused on our chemical mechanical aspects that we've kind of missed the electrical system in the body. And I think that we're not seeing the forest for the trees when it comes to our electrical system. Like most people get that if you get an EKG, it's measuring the electrical activity of your heart. Or if you get an EEG, it's measuring your brain waves. I think a lot of people know that blood carries a charge or that our nervous system transmits electrical signals. But we don't see the system in its totality and recognize that our electrical system is actually our primary system. It's our inner light. It's our aliveness. You know, when you're alive, your light is on, that energy is moving through you. You know, you're getting up, you're moving around, you're eating, you're doing all those things. When your light goes out, you know, you are gone. Your body is still there, but that which was you is not there. What is that? That's your electrical system. That's your biofield. That's the electric living part of you that determines, you know, whether you're alive or whether you're dead, if your light is on. And so that's what we treat with sound. Electricity and sound are, you know, they influence each other. And so I've made the discovery over decades of research now that the human body is like an electronic instrument that can go out of tune just like any instrument does. I mean, anybody who in the audience who's a musician knows that every time you pick up your instrument, you need to tune it. You know, life makes things like cars and instruments go out of tune, and same with people. And we take hits in life, and this damages our electronics, basically. And with the simple act of activating a tuning fork, a single tone generator, and passing it slowly through the magnetic field, you can find where the electronics have gone wonky, basically, because the tuning fork is going to interact with the waves being produced from the body. And it's actually going to be a conversation that you can hear. Geraldine, you've experienced it. You know, you've had that experience of me combing through your field and being like, wow, here's, you know, an atonal spot. And you've been like, yeah, I can hear that, right? And what's amazing is that not only can you hear it, but your body hears it. And your body goes, wow, that sounds really bad. It's like looking in the mirror and seeing you have spinach in your teeth, right? You're going to go to immediately correct it. And your body does the exact same thing. When it hears a part of itself that's out of tune reflected back, it actually uses that input to auto-tune. And that usually involves relaxing somewhere and taking a big breath to some resistance you're holding onto in your electrical system. So biofield tuning is a way of combing the noise and resistance out of our body's electrical system. And when the electrical system is flowing and clear, it creates a body that is flowing and clear.
Wonderful. And how are our emotions electric? How can we use, there's so much happening right now, and there's so many hot emotions now, and confusion and chaos and fear, and we're in fight or flight and panic, and we're looking for grounding and clarity. How how can tuning the human biofield, how can that help us, and how are the emotions electric? What can we do about that?
Well, emotions electrically, like from an electromagnetic, from a vibrational standpoint, I've come to see that our biofield, the outer part of it, the magnetic field part of our electrical system, extends beyond our body. It's like a torus, a bubble with a sphere spiral down the middle, like a fat donut is how they're often described. And that this structure, and it has a very distinct anatomy and physiology. And I've been able to map the anatomy and physiology of the biofield kind of like sonar. I spent years in a super quiet space bouncing sound off of the whole atmosphere around the body and listening to the ping back. And I discovered many things about this territory that's really hidden in plain view, that we actually carry our memories, can be accessed through our biofield. And the tone of our states of mind is all there, and it all gets reflected. And so what I've learned is that the field is actually banded. So if you take a bar magnet and you put some paper over the top and sprinkle iron filings on that, you're going to see the iron filings arrange themselves in lines of force, in bands. And our magnetic field does the same thing. So we have these bands. And basically, like, life plucks our strings. Things happen, and it'll put our biofield in a bunch, as opposed to our knickers in a twist, because our strings have been plucked, and now, whatever was already kind of hanging out in the tonal landscape of our electromagnetic system, if we've had a lot of stress, if we've had bad characters, if we've already got going on, and then something else comes along and plucks that string, then we react, and it sends a reverberation through the body that lasts about 90 seconds. And that comes from the work of, I can't think of her name right now. She's a neuroanatomist who wrote, Jill Bolte Taylor. She wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight. And she's a neuroanatomist who suffered a stroke and had a very interesting take on what it meant to lose that part of her brain. But her understanding and her research is that the actual reverberation of an emotional response lasts about 90 seconds. And it's a waveform. So the waveform is generated, it rises up, it crests, and then it falls away. Like any wave, it's like whoop, and then, and most of us grew up in homes where we were kind of given an abstinence only approach to emotions. Like in my home, it was stop your nonsense, right? I start to fuss about something or express some kind of indignation that an older sibling did to me. Stop your nonsense. Like parents, most of us grew up with parents who didn't want to hear it. And so, we weren't allowed to express ourselves. I often ask people, whose parents modeled effective emotional management? And how many people do you think raised their hands? None. I mean, none. Most of us grew up with parents who did what I call stuff and blow, where they would stuff and stuff and stuff till they couldn't take it anymore and then explode. And that was never effective, or they just exploded continuously and that was never effective. And, problems didn't get solved, and we don't see what to do with emotions. We're not taught. And so, what a lot of people do, and what I was certainly guilty of, is we seek to repress them in some way, whether that's through busyness and overwork, whether that's through substances, drugs, alcohol, shopping, Netflix, sex. There's just no end of ways to suppress and put aside, or even just with a strong mind, an emotion, right? And you can do that with kind of minor emotions. But when emotions start running high, like they are right now, you can't, that suppression thing doesn't work anymore. And if you're going to use alcohol, you're going to be getting pretty drunk, which I'm seeing a lot of at the moment. People are hitting the bottle kind of hard because the emotions are stronger. And so you got to, hold them down. But if you start to look at an emotion as an electromagnetic wave, and that when it is generated, it lasts about 90 seconds. If you can sit with that discomfort and kind of be curious about it and watch and feel it move through you, it actually moves through you. And then you're on the other side of it. And it's a very simple practice. You know, once you start thinking, oh, I just had my string plucked, I'm having this reaction, let me watch my clock for 90 seconds and see what happens. And then you come out the other side of it. Very often when we act, when we're in that 90 seconds, especially if it's anger, it usually involves taking it out on someone, which often isn't fair or kind or appropriate, because it often comes from a place that's been bottled up. So whatever that person did in this moment probably didn't warrant you completely unleashing on them. And then they're going to get defensive, and then you're not going to get anywhere, right? So letting an emotion arise and just being willing to be with it. I was just talking to a friend earlier, and she's saying, I haven't cried in years. And I said, I cry every day. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah, cry every day. I see something in my newsfeed that's really sad, I'll cry for a minute, and then it moves through, and then I'll see a joke and I'll laugh, right? That's effective emotional management, is this ability to just let them arise and let them move through. But when we have a big backlog, which most of us do, what comes out is bigger and stronger than that. And so this is where biofield tuning comes in. So biofield tuning is actually a process to kind of find these stuck, unexpressed backlog of emotions in the field, the sound being with them. And every single emotion has a very specific tone that we hear in the overtones and undertones. And it's very much like music. Like when I'm in a sad zone and somebody's off somebody's left shoulder, and I'm hearing a very sad story about some kind of loss, that tone sounds like sad music. And I don't need anybody to tell me, you don't need anybody to tell me, nobody needs anybody to tell them when a song is sad. You just know, right? And so it's the same with the language of emotion as it's reflected in the tuning forks, the overtones and undertones. Depression sounds sad. It sounds heavy. It sounds like Eeyore, like gray. And so what's amazing, in mild to moderate and even starting to trend to more severe, but not way out there, I can treat someone who has a backlog of depressive energy, holding a fork off their left shoulder, letting their body hear it, and bringing that low, heavy tone that was induced into the system, backing it out, bringing the instrument back into tune. The body isn't designed to stay stuck in these things. The body is designed to be resilient and to come back into tune. And so depression isn't this lifelong thing that you have to live with and take medication. Depression is just that D string is flat. Let's tighten it up a bit. And then all of a sudden you're not making that sound. All of a sudden you're like, ah. So when we start to look at ourselves as electromagnetic instruments that are, kind of distorted from bad inputs, and we start to clean up our tonal being, and we start to digest and tune these old heavy emotions, we become much less reactive. We're not, crying with this whole big backlog of sadness. I'm crying, for the amount of sadness that's appropriate for me to feel right there. Or I'm getting angry with the appropriate amount of anger right there, and not, right? And now as a culture, what we're seeing is this huge release of emotions, which I think is really important. Like, I think people need to express their emotions. They need to voice their anger. It's the step above apathy, that everybody's been kind of in, is anger. And we've got to go through the anger, and we've got to express it. When we get through the expressing of emotions, what comes on the other side is two things that I've observed. One is spaciousness. So, when you have a good cry, and if you've been holding back a cry for a long time, you have a really good cry, how you feel calm and sort of spacious at the end of it. Creativity also comes in, because holding back emotions is holding back life force, it's holding back creativity, it's holding back our voices, it's holding back our hearts. And when the backlog, the log jam of emotional expression has been released, and all of a sudden we enter into a state of flow, that is when creativity naturally arises. So I'm expecting we're going to move into, and I think that quarantine in a way has already started this, a lot of people awakening to their creativity and coming up with creative solutions to old problems.
I love your book. And it's like you've everything you've done, your research, your teachings, how you've influenced so many lives, it's like something's happening inside you. I can feel, knowing you for a few years, that's taken you to a whole new level of expressing what you're doing, where your research is going, what are you discovering, and especially now, what are you discovering that's new?
Well, I mean, lots of things, both inner and outer. Um, I've been on my own kind of evolutionary journey as an artist and as a researcher. So, one of the things I've been doing is I'm doing a singing and songwriting course with the brothers Corin, Isaac and Torald. One of the things that I've been working on is discovering body as instrument and, exploring my own human instrument and finding, even with years of biofield tuning, even with years of healing modalities, and I've availed myself to a lot, I'm still finding these hidden places inside of myself, I'm calling them keys on my inner piano that are stuck, that aren't making any sounds. And they're places that have been abandoned, places of bitter disappointment and places of just nebulous despair and kind of walls in my inner house, rooms that I walled off. And I was like, well, I'm not going there, you know. But in exploring body as instrument, finding these and really coming to the knowing that we don't want to get rid of any of our emotions. We don't want to not feel any of our emotions. I think this is one of the issues with spirituality and healing, is this idea of like, oh, we got to get rid of all our emotions and become Zen, and people get frustrated if they get angry or sad or having these negative emotions or whatever. We make judgment about our emotions. And there's even a part in our physiology that I call the gatekeeper that lives at the base of our neck. And if you've ever seen anyone who has a hump there at the base of their neck, okay, the physiology of that is that there's like a bouncer at an exclusive club there, and the bouncer decides which emotions are allowed to come in up into the brain, into cognition and awareness, and which emotions need to just stay in the body, right? Okay, anger, no, you're not allowed. This is a nice girl club, so anger, you can't come in. Rage, oh my God, absolutely not. Jealousy, you're not allowed to feel that, right? And so all of these emotions, which as the waveform gets generated, it also creates chemistry in our body. And that's the work of Candace Pert, the molecules of emotion, that, these messenger molecules that are holding the vibe of this emotion go into circulation. And so, they try to go up to the brain. I've got a message to deliver, like, you should be angry about what's happening right now. And the bouncer's like, no, anger's not allowed in. And so it starts to accumulate. Those molecules start to build up at the base of the neck. And those are all these emotions people are not letting themselves feel, right? So if anybody's got one of those, you got to fire the bouncer, because every emotion deserves a seat at the table. Every emotion is a messenger. There's a reason why you're feeling them. I look at them, they're kind of like zip strips on the side of the highway, and you're not paying attention, you start to drift in the rough. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm feeling all this upset in my body. Like, what's going on? Well, it's a sign, like something's happening. We need to pay attention. We need to adjust course. We need to listen to this discomfort and hear what it's telling us so that we can respond to that. It might be like, this is a really toxic environment. I really need to get out of it. And if you grew up in a toxic environment that you couldn't get out of, you shut that voice down a long time ago. And so you're going to stay in an unhealthy environment because you've disconnected yourself from the messenger that's trying to tell you that you need to get out, right? So they're all of our emotions are super important. And if we can just let ourselves feel them, then they pass. It's kind of like if you've ever gone whitewater rafting and you hit the rapids, but then you're through them. No such thing as infinite rapids. No such thing as an infinite emotion. We don't need to go for the syrup. We don't need to go for the chocolate. We don't need to go for the wine. It will stop on its own.
Sometimes though, the enormity of, I remember when I first was going into the grief after my son passed, the only thing, I would do talk therapy or just cry, but the only thing that allowed it to go really deep and go to the core of what you're talking about was to put sound around it. Was either to play the bowls, and just suddenly there was this container where there was such an explosion And just as you said, it was like going through the rapids. Okay, here we go. You know, put your seatbelt on, and then boom, you were through it. But I find with friends or with clients that I'm working with that to get us to that space where we feel safe enough to really drop in and just let them have their, you know, their 10 or whatever it is. You know, you were talking a little bit earlier about fire, and it's not as you said, it's not just about this deep relaxation, but it's about allowing that to be expressed in a safe manner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as far as grief goes, like music is the best. Sound and music are the best. I know when my mom died, and that was before I had tuning forks in my life. You know, she's the first person I ever lost. I was 25 years old and never lost anybody. And the grief was so crushing. I felt like it was gonna pull me like heart first down onto the floor. My heart was so heavy. I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to get up again, right? And grief is like that. You
Right.
can't do anything about it. What got me up off the floor was music. It was Tori Amos and Sarah McLachlan and Joni Mitchell, and you know, putting on albums and singing at the top of my lungs was the only thing that moved me and got me out of that, you know, the pit that grief can put you in. So I agree. And I think even the simple tuning fork held in an area of grief, the sound helps to digest that emotion along with you. I kind of describe it's like a mama bird, you know, sort of pre-digesting food, that the process of the sound really helps to break up and digest and move that heavy stuff through you. So, you know, it's an absolute essential companion, I think, really to help us deal with all emotions. Music, sound, our own voice, giving voice to how we feel. You know, that was the part of giving voice to the pit of despair, you know, that was lurking, hiding in my left lung, and sounding from that. What does that even sound like? And what does it sound like? What's the antidote sound like? It like when the pit of despair is heard and resolved, where does it go? And you know, it's so interesting. I wasn't expecting it. I was asked, where was that energy before it was in the pit of despair? And I was like, wow, it was in neediness. You know, it was in the need to connect and the need to be loved, and how that need didn't get fulfilled. You know, I grew up with 5 older siblings who always picked on me and always left me out. And finally, I just got to the point where it's like sour grapes. Like, I don't care. I was so despairing and it was so uncomfortable that I just got to the point where I didn't care anymore. Right. And so I'm disconnected from the despair and disconnected from the neediness. Like, we all need each other. It's one of the hardest things to admit. Right. So healing is really about bringing ourselves into our vulnerability, our availability, and moving from that authentic place. And there's a whole lot of emotions and stuff in the way, you know, to get there. But I think when we really get down into the heart of things, we're very tender beings that need love. And that's, you know, just what everybody wants and needs. But to get to that place, right, we have to express and feel all the things that are in the way. And, you know, sound healing is wonderful. I mean, I've been involved in the sound healing community for decades now. Um, a lot of the sound healing community, people think about calming and soothing things, you know, tuning forks and bells and bowls and gongs and all of these things to kind of help soothe us and relax us. But what I'm really feeling that people need to express is the fire of their being. And that we don't, I think, more than sitting down and shutting up and meditating and being mindful, we need to get up and we need to make noise and we need to stomp around and we need to drum and we need to sing and we need to move our bodies and we need to express the fire aspects of our being. And I think we need to do that together, you know, and so that's why I'm learning to play the electric guitar and also moving into, you know, not just being somebody who uses tuning forks for healing, but uses my voice as well as an instrument to help induce coherence, to help heal the electric system. You know, the human instrument is far more powerful than any tuning fork. And so, you know, my personal edge, I've lived most of my life pretty fearlessly, spoken in front of thousands of people fearlessly. The thought of singing in front of people terrifies me to death, just terrifies me, and has for a long time. And so I think that we grow, you know, by facing our fears. And so that's kind of my exploration at the moment. I've been writing songs and learning to sing them, doing vocal coaching, learning to play my guitar, and it's terrifying, but it's also exhilarating. And so I think that that's an important part of health, is that we're always kind of pushing into our fears and growing into them. And it's never too late. I'm much better at learning electric guitar at 51 than I was when I tried when I was in my 20s, because I'm patient now, which I wasn't then.
It's true. The human voice, when you recognize we are our own vibratory instrument, and to tune ourselves is that's where the self-love begins. You were talking about, yes, we're the vulnerability and we need to be loved, but we have to learn to start with that love inside ourselves. And simply by aligning our instrument, harmonizing our own instrument, giving it space to express itself. And what you said, just the terror of, I can speak in front of thousands of people, but sing, to get to that place that singing is as natural as it's been in so many cultures throughout time is a free gift that every human being has.
Absolutely. And that gave me goosebumps, Geraldine. You saying that is that we all should be free to enjoy our own voices. And for a great many people in our culture, that's been taken away from us. And I was one of those people. I got very clear download when I was 20 years old that I needed to go and learn how to sing. And then I was like, what? No, like I was the kid always clapping on the offbeat, singing off key, squeaking my clarinet, like hopelessly non-musical, grew up in a non-musical family, not ever exposed to music, just wasn't my wheelhouse at all. Unlike Victor, right? He's getting it like from the moment he's conceived, he was bathed in music. And so he lives and breathes it. That was not my experience. And also I had experiences in my upbringing that really shut me down on so many levels. So when my very first voice lesson, when I was 20, it took me 15 minutes. She kept playing middle C on the piano and being like, la, and I just couldn't even make a sound. I felt like I had, hands around my throat, my palms were sweating, my knees were knocking. And then I finally like croaked out some horrible sound and burst into tears. And the poor woman didn't know what to do with me at all. But I left being like, oh my God, I've been robbed of my voice. Like, where did it even go? And how many people feel that way about their singing voice? To be human is to sing with other humans freely, to enjoy the instrument of your body and your voice. It is a great joy and freedom. And I would say 80% of people, if not more, are not free to enjoy their own voices. And for me, it's been a 30-year journey to recover the freedom of my voice.
I'm so glad you said yes to that, and that's probably part of the radiance that we see now. It's like there's such a joy and delight and a freedom in you. And I think for many of us, when our voice is shut down, it limits our ability to self-love. We start feeling what's wrong with us. I don't want to do anything that I could be shamed for, right? That would be embarrassing. And it's the most natural vibration that we are, is our voice.
Absolutely. And you see how free kids are with it in kindergarten. They're all just singing along, nobody's concerned. And that freedom gets taken away. And then everybody becomes concerned. And then you've lost the joy of one of the most fundamental joys it is in being human, in my opinion.
Curious, I want to relate something back. So, as you began mapping the human biofield, I mean, and as you said, there's certain tones or there are certain frequencies that you knew corresponded to certain histories or certain areas of the body, yeah. Can you speak a little bit into that? And then do you do any work with the human voice and the tuning forks?
Absolutely. So the voice is very much informed by the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is, travels into your whole gut, right? I mean, your voice, the work of Sherry Edwards, I don't know how familiar you are with her work, but she basically can determine what is wrong with you by listening to your voice. Like I can determine what's wrong with you by listening to your emanations as reflected in tuning forks. And I can identify pretty much any emotion, pretty much any pathology. Because if anything is wrong in an organ or a joint or the skeletal system, it's going to make noise. And just like a good mechanic can diagnose a car by listening to it, I can kind of diagnose what's wrong in your body by listening to it. And so tension of any kind, and that was what was going on with me, was that I had so much tension in my body. I was the youngest in a big family. I skipped 2 grades in school. I was always at the bottom of the pecking order. And I had just kind of like done this. Like I pulled myself into a tight little ball, and I had so much tension in my vagus nerve that it was in my voice. And so in order for our instrument to be anatomically functional, we have to have open space, we have to have resonant cavities, we have to have relaxation, we have to have connection to our bodies, because so much singing happens with the psoas's relationship to the diaphragm, and your consciousness has to be embodied in your physiology. And I had none of that. I had no spaciousness. I was completely outside of myself. I was not even present in my own body. Like many people who experience trauma, there's a kind of disassociation that takes place where the body is too painful to inhabit and too tense and too full of uncomfortable emotions. So we just kind of get on the side of it or behind it or above it somewhere. And we're kind of on the outside looking in, judging ourselves, feeling inwardly divided. And so healing our bodies, bringing our consciousness into our full instrument, our full being, and relaxing into that, and even enjoying our bodies, right? This is another thing that's been taken away, because not only are we not free to enjoy our voices because of the shame thing, we're not free to enjoy our bodies either, unless we fit into a very, narrow definition of beauty. And so, if you're not enjoying your voice, you're probably not enjoying your body either. And yet our bodies are designed for pleasure. I mean, at everywhere. My eyes love beauty. My tongue loves deliciousness, I mean, we can go on from there. We're designed to enjoy pleasure. And that's a kind of a thing, like some people are like, whoa, I don't know about that. Like when I said that to my friend Marcy, because I was quoting someone who said that life evolved in pursuit of pleasure. I mean, it's normal. We move away from pain and towards pleasure. So why wouldn't we evolve, right? And she said, well, I disagree with that. And I said, well, how? And she said, well, what about the bliss of the union with the divine? And I was like, that sounds pretty pleasurable to me. You know what I mean? Like that my body can experience that too. And is that more good than enjoying a really good square of handmade Jamaican dark chocolate, right? I can experience God through that too. And God, when it comes right down to it.
Indeed.
So to come back to your question about the voice. So yeah, I've worked with a lot of singers and musicians. And what they find is that as they release tension and open up space, that their voice becomes more resonant. And musicians too. I mean, athletes, anybody, like what this work does, because it relaxes you. I mean, a very fundamental level, it just makes you relax and breathe more fully. And when you're in that space, you go into that state of flow, into the zone, you're better at everything that you do. So many singers have said, wow, I was able to hit notes or, go to ranges or just feel more resonant in my body because I'm more relaxed now. I've got the best golf game of my life. Whatever your thing is, it's going to be better when you're in a state of relaxed flow.
Thank you. Eileen, how can sound, tuning the human body, how can it help to also ground and anchor us? And what does it have to do really in relation to the energy centers of the body, to the chakra system?
Well, the chakra system, okay, so when we use the word chakra, we're talking about the subtle energy system. And, there's kind of this division in Western thinking where we've removed the subtle aspect of that, of like in China, or, the idea of qi, when they first started like powwowing on that back, I guess in the 50s, something that I read an account that the American scientists and the Chinese and were like, okay, well, what you're calling qi, we call electricity. Okay, so qi is really electricity, but the understanding of qi understands the subtle aspects of it. And same with like the chakras and this idea that this is sort of the subtle electric aspect of it. I see that what we call classical electromagnetism also has a subtle aspect that isn't necessarily defined clearly in our Western way of thinking. But the way that I see it is as water vapor is to water, subtle energy is to classical electromagnetism. It's the same thing, but it's finer, it's more diffuse, and it obeys different laws. Just like water vapor obeys different laws than water and ice, right? Same thing, just in a different state and following different things. So I would say that our chakras, everywhere there's a chakra, there's a nerve plexus. So they're a part of our electrical anatomy. So any place you have a nerve plexus, you have a greater concentration of that electric energy. And so it's very easy to translate chakra speak and subtle energy into electric speak and just kind of normalize it, right? There's a nerve plexus there. And each nerve plexus governs different parts of the anatomy and also different parts of the emotional anatomy, because we experience emotions and they kind of get generated and stored in different areas. Like our lower abdomen holds guilt and shame and frustration and disappointment, whereas our solar plexus region tends to hold more like anger and powerlessness and regret. And this area up here is more sort of resentment and sadness and despair. So different chakras, different zones in our electrical body govern different emotional states and obviously different parts of our physiology as well. So, okay, coming back to your question, can you repeat your question, Geraldine?
Yeah, about how we can use sound really to anchor us. So, I mean,
Correct. Okay.
so to root us, and then how does that affect as we go up the human system, if we speak about it in terms of chakras,
Yeah.
how can we really, how can we become self-healing? And just like what you said, the solar plexus, the heart, what the different areas of our body hold.
Yeah. So, again, coming back to that sort of what is the biofield, it's your electromagnetic body. So we are electromagnetic organisms in an electromagnetic environment. And the electromagnetic aspect of our environment has also kind of been hidden from us. We actually live in a sea of plasma. I mean, we live in a magnetic field. The earth has charge, and the surface of the earth has charge, and there's different voltage gradations all around, right? So because we are electromagnetic beings in an electromagnetic environment, we want to be in harmony with that. We want to be in equilibrium. When we wear rubber-soled shoes, rubber is an insulator. And so having that between our feet and the surface of the earth, we're kind of like an acupuncture needle. Like we draw in the positive energy from the sun through the top of our head, and then we ground that down into the earth, and we pull the surface of the earth is net negative. We pull that up from the surface of the earth through our bodies, and this is what circulates through our field. So we absolutely want the descending current to be able to go to ground, and we want to be able to pull the ascending current up. We want to be in this state of bi-directional flow. Rubber-soled shoes interrupt the whole thing. And so people become very tired. They become very disconnected and ungrounded, and then in their heads. And the antidote is to get outside, get in the sun, don't wear sunscreen, practice sun gazing. Like the sun is the healthiest thing for you. And we've been lied to about it, that you can look at the sun for a long time when it's going down the horizon, it doesn't do any damage, and it gives you energy. Since I've been here in Jamaica, I've been practicing, my own sort of version of high voltage living and getting as much energy from my environment. I set up my laptop on a picnic table in the shade down at the beach, and I work with bare feet in the sand. And I eat very little because I swear I'm just running on sunlight. Sunlight, fresh juices, fresh fruit. Don't seem to need a lot because I understand that my electric body is me. And the more I fuel my electric body, there's some hammering going on next door. I don't know if you can hear that, but I am in an open air villa in Jamaica, and there's no way to close windows, unfortunately. So hopefully that won't go on. So we take care of our electric health, and being grounded, being connected to the earth is the most important thing. The simplest thing. I studied health for a long time, and when I discovered earthing or grounding, or basically taking off your shoes, and I started going out walking barefoot every day, I was like, I've studied all these different things. I've done this supplement and that program, and nothing has been more effective than just taking off my shoes. Really, it's profound. If you're not already grounding, you need to do it because it's huge, and it's an important first step in taking care of your electric health. And then once you're grounded and you're in alignment, you're bringing up that energy from the earth. It's circulating through your whole being. You're bringing down energy from the sun. That toroidal structure is flowing, and you're in that state of electrical flow.
And how does that relate also to our body chemistry, to the endocrine system?
Well, the vibes are primary. Vibes generate chemistry. And if you're tinkering around at the level of chemistry, you're missing the point. Like, you got to tinker at the level of the vibes to really make a difference. You can change the chemistry all you want, but if the vibe generation is still being what it is, it's going to keep on messing up the chemistry. And we're going at it completely backwards by trying to treat the chemistry in the body. The chemistry is secondary to the vibes. And the vibes are generated, you know, to some degree in your mind, out of habit. Like, a lot of people indulge drama regularly out of habit and think it's necessary, when really it's just a pattern and a habit, and it's not necessary. And that a lot of stress just comes from habitual drama, you know, and our cells can't do what they need to do when the psyche is freaking out. You know, when you're all in some kind of story in your head, your cells that are trying to get rid of waste and trying to bring in nutrients and are like, whoa, we can't function, right? So the most important thing that we can do for our health is not think about your chemistry. It's pay attention to how your thoughts and feelings are generating vibes in your body that is making it hard for the colony of cells that comprises you to go about their daily business. That's and in a peaceful kingdom, everything gets taken care of. In a factory where the boss is a jerk and comes in and yells at people and, you know, attacks them and tells them that they're all not good enough and all that, what's going to happen to morale and output and all of that? So I think that we really need to think about, most of your body is bacteria and viruses and all kinds of stuff that isn't even human. Water, you're just stewarding the water, you know. And if we want to be healthy, we've got to create an environment of health where emotions and thoughts and feelings are all healthy.
Yeah. In harmony.
In harmony, and sound and music can do that. I mean, it really is the best medicine to bring that harmony into the system and get ourselves in tune. Yeah.
What kinds of things might you suggest to our viewers to help during this, to help with healing and rebirth during these really extraordinary times?
Well, I always try to go from the simplest and most available, right? The freest, simplest, most available. So the most important thing you can do is breathe, because that's where we get most of our electric juice from, right? And all of this, like, I can't breathe and mask wearing and all this stuff that's going on, it's really interesting to me because, you know, in all the years that I've been studying health, I've really come to the conclusion that the best thing for our health is free and open breath, where we breathe fully and completely and freely in every single breath, because our electric body is primarily fed on breath. The oxygen molecule has 4 free electrons, and these electrons are what bind to the hemoglobin, the iron in our blood, and it's these electrons that get dropped off at cells. You know, you can go for weeks without food. It's not the electricity in food that's keeping you alive moment to moment. You can go for days without liquids, not electrolytes, in water, or, you know, lemon juice in your water. It's air. It's oxygen. We live in an electromagnetic environment, and we are breathing in life all the time. This is our primary source of life, is our breath. And how are we breathing? Because when you're really emotional, you don't breathe properly at all. When you're really angry, you're hardly breathing, you know? When you're sad, you're often, you know, gasping and hiccuping, and when you get in a cry state, you know, any kind of emotion that we're in, even if we're in our head spinning, we're not breathing. And then we wonder why we're exhausted at 3 p.m. if you've been holding your breath and spinning out in your head all day. So just becoming aware of your breath and saying yes to life with every breath, saying yes to the Creator, saying yes to Mother Earth, saying yes to being here, right? Yeah, just breathe better and more. And biofield tuning really helps with that. Realize that an emotion only lasts 90 seconds. Next time an emotion arises in you, be curious. Ride along with it. Don't go reach for the habitual whatever. You know, be curious about the experience. See if you can let it flow through you and go to the other side. Speak how you feel. But, you know, I think that the best way to speak how you feel, I found to be the most effective. You know, and I tried explaining this to my 22-year-old son who's full of testosterone, and he didn't get it at all. But I was like, the more yin, the more concave, the more gentle and kind and respectful we are when we speak our truth, the more likely we are to be heard. And the more we deeply listen to other people, the more likely they are to deeply listen to us. So it's really important that we share how we feel, but it's important that we do it with respect and that we do it with equal curiosity to hear how other people feel. And then we look for solutions together. So listening deeply, I think, is really important, and speaking from that needy, vulnerable place that is true, that we do need each other, and we need respect and kindness from each other. And that's not too much to ask. I really don't think that's too much to ask. You know, I'm an idealist. I'm an unapologetic idealist. Somebody has to be. And you know, when it's as simple as kindness, but it starts with ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves. So if you have a voice in your head that's unkind, if you have that division in you between the inner critic and the inner victim, you're part of the problem. You know, how can you create peace in yourself? How can you be kind to yourself? Because that's where it really starts. In saying, I'm not going to have any unkindness in my inner kingdom. I'm going to insist that every voice that speaks in me speaks with kindness and respect. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to live that in myself. Because if everybody in the world all of a sudden was no longer inwardly divided, and they had kindness and respect for themselves, what we would see out there would be very different. So, and then the last thing I would say is sing and dance, sing and dance, sing and dance, sing and dance. When you're cooking dinner, put on a fun thing, sing and dance, play. You know, I think that we, in these kinds of times, we feel guilty for being happy, for being joyful, for being playful. And yet that's the medicine. That's the medicine. It really is. And I'm not saying we don't acknowledge what's going on, because I'll sit down and read the news and I'll cry, but then I'll get up and go make dinner and I'll dance, right? We don't want to get stuck playing any one note over and over and over again. It gets boring. It gets unhealthy. We've got to explore all the keys in our inner piano of expression, and they're all deserve to be played, right? So, but using discernment around that. Like, you're not going to go playing the heavy stuff, you know, while you have guests over. Like, we want to, you know, figure out what is appropriate to express when and how, too. So discernment's an important part of that equation as well.
So beautifully said. I'm just curious, do you use the tuning forks to help, like, do you use the binaural beat at all? Would you use tuning forks on either side of the brain and use that to help just calm that mind that gets so active?
Yeah, and I got a few different ways that I do that. So I got a couple of different forks in front of me. So I've got unweighted forks and unweighted forks, weighted forks and unweighted forks. So this is what's called a weighted fork. It's got barrels on the end, and it's got a little boot on the end as well. So those are weighted forks, and then these are the unweighted forks. These are the ones like you tune a piano or an instrument with. I have two that make a binaural beat of 111 hertz. So 111 hertz is a gamma brainwave state. It's like high focus, and you know, it's like, I'm just like super focused and clear. I also have another set. I don't have them in front of me, but they make the binaural beat of 7.83 hertz, which is the Schumann resonance, which is the background pulse within the Earth's ionospheric cavity that's created by all the electrical activity in the Earth, of the lightning and thunder, and, you know, makes this kind of background pulse of around 7.83 hertz. which is a frequency we really need. Our brain, our pineal gland actually receives that frequency and bases all of our circadian rhythms off of it. So when people go deep underground or up into space and they're not subjected to that 7.83 hertz, they start to go haywire. So it's a super important frequency for us to listen to. So I have two forks that are multiples of the Schumann resonance. That I have one that's 7.83 times 7 and one that's 7.83 times 8. And the difference between the two is 7.83 hertz. So when you hold one on either side, your brain actually generates the difference between the two. 7.83 hertz in our brainwave is sort of on the alpha theta cusp. It's a place of very deep quiet inside. So just by holding these forks and generating this frequency, your brain entrains into that alpha brainwave state. But you can also go into an alpha brainwave state simply by activating any tuning fork and just listening to it, right? So we can bring ourselves to presence simply by switching out of thinking, which is in that sort of 12 to 16 hertz frequency range in the brain, into an alpha brainwave state, more like 8 to 10 hertz in that range, just by shifting my focus to listening. That's why music is so helpful, right? Because it brings us out of thinking, which is usually related to past or future, and into now. And generally, now is okay. Generally. Although the last week, it wasn't okay for a lot of people. But I mean, that's unusual circumstances. I mean, in most people's ordinary everyday life, if you're sitting at home and you're safe, but you're fussing, you can bring yourself to presence simply by listening to a bowl, listening to a tuning fork, or you can create these binaural beats. So I don't know if this would come through on the speaker, but that's 528 hertz and 417 hertz together. And so that creates that cool number of 111. And they figured out that a lot of sound chambers, ancient sound healing chambers, resonate at 111 hertz. So just kind of noticing how that, I feel like it brings me to kind of like a bright inner attention.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then I have more. These two forks are the Fibonacci series. So there are two positions in the Fibonacci sequence. They are 89 hertz and 144 hertz. And the Fibonacci sequence is a mathematical unfolding of numbers where each number gets added to the number before it. So it starts off with 0, 1, and you add that, and that's 1, and then 1 and 1 is 2, and 2 and 1 is 3, and then 5, and then 8, and then it goes up from there. And that's often described in the way like spirals unfold in nature. It's the essential numerical geometry that underlies a lot of the way life unfolds and unfurls. And it's described as the golden mean, the golden ratio. When you take two digits, in this case, 144, and 89, you divide 144 by 89, you end up with 1.618. And that's the golden ratio, the golden mean. Order, beauty, truth, harmony, phi. Right? A lot of people have heard of pi, 3.14. Not everybody's heard of phi. But these two forks used together create a binaural beat with the information of the golden mean, which is pretty cool. Because our bodies are built in the golden mean proportion, the distance between our eyes and our nose and the digits in our finger, we're all built in this geometry. And so these two forks inform our body of that. And so you can experience it. One of my favorite things to do with these is to press them up against my ear. And then you end up with like this thundering vibration going through your head that stops you from thinking right away and like really brings you into this moment and kind of balances your brain hemispheres. So if you've got really any two tuning forks, but, the Schumann forks, these forks, certain ratios, you can create this experience for yourself. There's also tons of stuff on YouTube that creates binaural beats. Although I have to say that I'm an analog acoustic kind of gal. I'm not a huge fan of listening to digitally produced stuff. And I'd rather have the acoustic tools in my hands than be listening to something digital on a computer.
I know I feel the same way. That's why when you experience the forks or the bowls live, It's different.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because it's just the way it goes through you, you know, you really, and it's a conversation with your body. And that's what I love about the tuning forks is that they're not just an input of like, here, see, they're a conversation, they're a dialogue, they're a whole organic thing that happens between the body and the instrument, and that you don't have that kind of living interaction, through digitally produced sound.
It's something living that's really vibrating. And
Yeah.
it feels to me just personally that my cells really respond in a different way than when I hear digitally produced music. But if that's all you have, that's good too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that, would you want more?
Yeah, definitely more. And I wanted to ask you too about Pythagoras. If you work with the Pythagorean ratio, but yes, go where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, ask me about that. Pythagoras, that's something that I really, for years, Geraldine, I didn't consider myself a musician. I didn't know how to play any instruments. And not only that, like I was kind of dyslexic in that department. So, I always did everything backwards and wrong. It's so confusing. And even playing guitar has been really stretched my brain, and actually learning to play and sing at the same time. My God. But when you think that when you're convinced that you're not those things and you can't do these things, and then you actually do them, it's so worth it, to be like, wow, that was just a story of self-limitation, and there's a way to work through this. So a lot of times people ask me about like, well, what do you think of 432 versus 440, right? 430 being a more natural number and 440 being somewhat artificial. My response was always like, well, I'm not a musician, so I can't really speak to that. I've listened to music in 432 and 440, and I got a pretty discerning ear. I can't really tell the difference, so I can't, I've done the research, I've looked it all up, but it's not, I would still say that I'm not so much of a musician. I'm just more of a sound researcher, and I can speak to you all day about the nuance of the tones of your biofield. But when it comes to more sort of scholarly, sort of musical stuff like that, I'm not well versed in it enough to speak intelligently about it.
That's so interesting because if you sang it, so if you, one of the pieces, let's just say that you composed, and if you tuned the instruments to 432 or if you turned them to 440, you would feel it.
Well, we're going to do that actually. So the plan is to mess around with recording in 432. We're going to do it in 440. We're going to do it in 432 and see, because for me, I want to feel it. I want to feel the difference and have that personal experience, because listening to digitally produced sound, again, through speakers, I'm not discerning a difference. But if we're tuning our own instruments to 432 and I'm singing in that key, I'm sure I will notice the difference. So let me report back to you on that, Carolyn, once I've experienced it.
You will definitely feel a difference in your body.
Yeah, I believe you.
I'm curious in where your music is going. Um, do you imagine your original songs, electric guitar, and adding tuning forks?
No, no, because my music is rock and roll.
Okay.
It's rock and roll. I love singing and dancing, and my music is not sit around and healing. It's not. It's get up and dance and sing music. So there's no tuning forks involved. Like no crossover. No.
Okay. So back to where we were about the tuning forks. What else you wanted to share, please?
Well, so not only listening to tuning forks, but actually rubbing them on yourself also will have an effect of bringing your instrument into tune. This particular frequency, not this one is the Schumann resonance times 12. So it's 93.96 Hertz. And, I've created a lot of prototypes over the years. And this particular one is just so pleasing. Like you can just activate it and put it on yourself. You put it on your sternum and it kind of vibrates through your whole skeletal system. And what it's doing is it's imparting coherent mechanical information that has the Schumann resonance in it, because it's a multiple of it. And, lots of people are making use of forks like this. I invented this boot to go on the end to expand the surface area. If you get a headache, or you're feeling stressed, any kind of stress, you can just put a fork on you. You can slide the handle. You can, kind of cover your whole body with it. And when you spend 5 to 10 minutes just putting coherent sound into your body, you feel more coherent. Like, it makes you feel different, and a lot of the uncomfortable emotions that we're feeling, we call incoherent emotions, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, it's great to feel it, but if it keeps coming up and it's persistent and you're not managing it well, you want to seek to induce more coherence into your system. And so, singing, chanting, toning, those are ways to use your voice as an instrument to do that. Or you can literally rub coherent sound all over your whole body and be amazed at how much better it makes you feel. That's a big part of my health regimen is I rub these weighted forks all over myself every day, and not for a long time, but enough that it has a youthifying effect, and it just kind of puts things, back in order. And it's a really simple self-care routine that helps a lot.
You created a special set, a special fork called the Sonic Slider.
Yeah, the sonic slider. Yeah, that's this one. This is the sonic slider.
Okay.
And so, there's thousands and thousands of these out there, and people just love them. We get reports daily about how much people love their sonic slider in helping them in so many different ways. So just a really simple instrument. And there's a lot of devices out there for health and beauty that, like frequency devices. I've experimented with a number of them. And what I found that when you have daily use of any device that has batteries or plugs in, especially if you're not grounded, you start to build up electrostatic charge. You start to build up dirty electricity in your body. And then when you add that on top of exposure to phones and devices and Wi-Fi and all of that, it's too much, in my opinion. So having frequency devices that help you out, that don't generate artificial electromagnetic fields, I think is better for you. Because as people start to discover electric health and frequency medicine, everybody loves a gadget. And, I think there's gonna be this rush towards these gadgets if it hasn't, started happening already. And some of them are really expensive. And I'll just say you can accomplish a lot of that with a simple tuning fork and no dirty electricity. So, don't discount the deceptive simplicity of a tuning fork to help you out.
Dr. John Beaulieu, he shared about helping the firemen after 9/11 with tuning forks, and also about refugee children in Germany, also helping them with tuning forks. You have a wonderful project that's Tuners Without Borders. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Tuners Without Borders is a division in my nonprofit. So the Biofield Tuning Institute does research and outreach and education. And we just completed a study that we wrote up, and it was accepted by the Journal of Alternative Medicine. So I can actually say I finally have my name on a paper that is peer reviewed, which is exciting. But the outreach division is this idea that the people who need this work the most are the ones who can least afford it. And Tuners Without Borders is our way of raising money to bring tuning forks into populations where there is the need is greatest. And I launched it in 2018 in Kingston, Jamaica, actually at the Boys Town School, which is across the street from where Bob Marley lived as a youth in Trenchtown, which was kind of exciting. Like, I never could have imagined being in Trenchtown, handing out tuning forks and teaching people how to use them. We also got involved with a church group in Kingston, and it's basically what I do is I give them like a peer-to-peer protocol that's pretty simple to do. So we get the forks in their hands, we teach them how to use it on themselves and also how to use it on their peers. And our group in Kingston, one of the groups that we worked with was meeting monthly every day for like right up until COVID. I was actually I was in Kingston when everything was in the process of shutting down. And we actually had to cancel my showing up at their monthly meeting because everything was shutting down. It was like mid-March when that happened. But I'm still involved with them. And we've also brought some forks to the Pine Ridge Native American reservations. So Native Americans are a group that I really care about. I feel like, need a lot of help, and we hope to do more with the Native American tribes. And then currently we're raising money right now to get sonic sliders in the hands of first responders in hospitals, nurses, the people in these hot spots that have been, just really under a tremendous amount of stress, and then the sort of protests and everything adding to it. I had a nurse reach out to me and say that she's responsible for helping these people to get over their PTSD. And so it's a great opportunity for us to bring this vibrational medicine into hospitals because it works. And I'm wanting these people to have these tools to help them feel better. And then maybe, we'll start to see it find its way into medicine at some point. But certainly there's a lot of people out there who've been, traumatized and working so hard over the last few months. And, that's kind of where my attention has gone at the moment, and seeing that these people need help. And, I get on Zoom and do free training and things like that. So that's the Tuners Without Borders, just wants to help get vibrational medicine in the hands of the people that need it the most.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bet.
Yeah. We have a young lady that's working in Connecticut in Stamford, and she has four bowls, and she's in her early 20s. And she wrote me just thrilled, Geraldine, they asked me if I would do a sound bath. Grown men that I've been working with for the last 2 years, grown men, they were quiet. And they said, please bring your bowls tomorrow, and please bring them every day.
Wow.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
People are open. Sometimes it takes a crisis to open up to the stuff, but here's the window. And for those of us who are practitioners of sound, we know that sound helps. And so to have people who have been previously closed-minded now open-minded is, I think it's going to create a sea change, honestly, in our culture.
What would you recommend for people? Do you have a special recommendation for a starter?
Well, it just depends on your budget, right? I mean, if you've got a tight budget, you can go on Amazon and you can buy a 128 hertz tuning fork for probably under $15. But with tools, you do get what you pay for, right? And so if money allows, I would say get my sonic slider. It's, the 128 hertz fork on Amazon, it's got a handle about this long. It's really hard to hold. You can't really rub it on yourself. The vibration is going to die pretty quickly. Whereas the sonic slider has got a super long handle. It's custom made in the United States. It vibrates, designed to vibrate for a really long time. It's going to last. It's a high quality tool that's going to last a long time, and it's thoughtfully created. The frequency is very thoughtfully created. And the quality is high. These are 75, and they come with instructions on how to use them on your whole body. I actually lost 15 pounds in 5 weeks when I started experimenting with a prototype on my body. Just squeezed out all my water weight, and it added tone to my muscles. It improved digestion. Not everybody has that same experience. So I don't want people jumping out of their chairs to order it thinking you're also going to lose 15 pounds in 5 weeks. I had released a lot of emotional trauma. A lot of weight that we carry is emotional tension. And so for me, having received a lot of biofield tuning, having released a lot of that, I just had extra water weight that the fork just kind of squeezed right out of me. I went from a size medium to a size extra small. I had to replace my entire wardrobe when I first started using the sonic slider. So, but not everybody has that outcome. But most people do report they lose weight, they start to become more sculpted, their faces become more sculpted, their lymph flow improves, their mood improves, their sleep improves, cellulite gets reduced. I mean, it really does do all these things. And I know it sounds like, crazy thing that it does all that, but this is just what people have reported, and it's such a simple tool that helps you feel better. And if you get in the routine of using it every day, it will improve your mood. It will lengthen your fuse. It will, it's a moment of self-love. Like I do it with affirmations, being like, I love my beautiful, healthy body. I'm healthy and well. And it's a simple self-care routine that doesn't take very long that yields a lot of good benefits, harnessing the power of sound.
Eileen, may I ask you to share a tuning with us that's helpful for all of us right now at this time.
Yeah, and you know what's coming to my mind, Geraldine, when you asked me before, I didn't have an idea, but now I do.
Mhm.
And I recently offered a tuning for free, 144 strand electrical activation. And maybe we can find some way for me to share the link for that with the viewers here. I'll supply you with it. Maybe you can put it somewhere on my page.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things that we had a really hard time doing was actually connecting to the earth, to the ground. I felt like there were so many people who were feeling like they just didn't want to be here right now, you know? Like that sort of feeling of like, oh my God, like, you know, if this wasn't bad before, boy, it's really bad now. And I want out.
Yeah.
And what came up for me was, you know, there's nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is beautiful. The planet is so giving and so loving, you know? If we can connect to the planet, to the earth herself, in an electromagnetic embrace, and really love our mother, and seek solace in nature and through our connection to nature, you know, I think that's some of the best medicine that we can avail ourselves to. And so I really had to coerce the group energy field to hug their mother. So I think that that's what we'll do. I think we'll just get the stuff in the way that's in the way, you know, between us, and just like, be here now. There's a reason why you're here now. Commit to being here and find the nourishment you need from the earth herself. So let's just do a little tuning to make that a little bit easier to make that connection.
Beautiful.
All right. So I'm going to start. I'm going to use 174 hertz unweighted fork. So we're going to hear it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in the Biofield anatomy, we have an energy center below our feet, we call it the Earth Star Energy Center. You call it the negative battery terminal, but it's through this part of our magnetic field that we actually connect to and draw in the energy of the Earth. And so let's do that. Let's connect there. If we want to take another step after that, we might, or it might feel complete to just leave it in that, you know, that magnetic embrace with our electromagnetic mother. Yeah. The sun is our electromagnetic father, father sky and mother earth. It really is true, you know, that we are the marriage of both. And it's the electric light in us that comes from the sky, and it's, you know, the clay of our bodies and the minerals and everything that makes up our earth. And it really is a divine and amazing union. I mean, to be human is an extraordinary thing. And and we've been robbed of that. Just like, you know, I had the experience of being robbed of my voice. So many of us have had that experience. We've been robbed of the joy of being and the wonder and amazement of being. And that's restorable. And I think that's where, you know, health starts to come back in, and hope and harmony and all of that. So, okay. So let's just start by becoming aware of breathing, because this is the most important thing that I said earlier for letting life in, saying yes to life, is the free and open breath. And I would even go so far as to say that the degree of freedom in our breath directly relates to the degree of freedom in our life, inner and outer freedom. And in biofield tuning, we breathe into the area behind and below the navel. And when we exhale, we relax the area around the tailbone and energetically push the exhale down into the earth. So breathing into the belly and then exhaling. And what that kind of exhale with that grounding intention releases the tension in the vagus nerve that might be all bunched up. And so, and we can even add sound to it. We can go, ah, right? Just even making that kind of sound, ah, it makes you feel better. It's the, you know, it's sort of like, phew, that sigh of relief. Even if you're not feeling relieved, you make the sigh of relief, you're going to feel more relieved. So when we do biofield tuning and we find areas in the field that are all bunched up and there's no breath in that part of our being, we breathe. And so when I'm working, I'm always finding these little spots and areas that are bunched. And so I breathe, and I invite you to breathe. So I'm just going to do a little adjustment. Sometimes what happens is this energy center gets pulled up, it gets tucked up even all the way to our ankles when we're afraid, when we're compressed, when we're contracted. And a lot of us are living in that state right now. And so we're going to find that, we're going to adjust it, pull it down, create some space, and then we're going to connect that down into the earth and just ground ourselves energetically. So how does this work at a distance? Have you ever listened to a musical recording that was recorded many, many years ago and been moved by it? Okay, this is no different. It's no different. I can move you with this. And even if you and I are recording it and people listen to it much later, we can be moved by recordings of sound. Okay? All right. So placing your awareness at your feet, and I'm finding the collective, everyone who will ever listen to this recording, watch this video, you are present right here and right now. And if your lower battery terminal is tucked, we're going to untuck it. I'm going to hook into it, and I'm going to slowly draw it down away from the feet. And we're going to help it to rest in its correct anatomical position. And as I'm doing this, you might feel like shoulders starting to relax and release a little bit. You might feel the hips start to relax a little bit, tailbone open a little bit more. You might feel that the diaphragm really wants to expand and take an even bigger breath. Good. Okay, so that adjustment is complete. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hang out in this energy center. The purpose of the center is to channel the ascending current, what we call negative electricity, up the legs, up the central channel, up the spine, and out the top of the head. This is the central channel of the toroidal structure of the biofield. And it is, so we're just maybe feeling, you might feel it already, start to kind of come up the legs. Just feeling energy, it's just kind of coming up from, this is what this energy center does. It brings up energy. Good, so I really feel that. It feels like a fountain of energy moving through the body. So we're just gonna really feel that. And now on my next strike, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna really deeply connect this center deep down into the earth. And right off the bat, it sounds funky. Like there's like, oh, like, no, I don't want to be here. No, no. There's a lot of resistance to being connected, to being here and being grounded. And I just really want to invite you. You signed up to be here now, man. Stick around. Like, we need you. You got a role to play. And the more firmly committed you are to being here on the surface of the earth and letting this energy in, the more you're going to find the strength and the resources you need to do what you need to do. So, thinking about parts of nature that you really love. Do you love the birds? Do you love the ocean? Do you love waterfalls in the woods? Do you love the scent of jasmine flowers? Do you love hummingbirds or dragonflies? Like, even if you've been in a really funky spot, think about something of the beauty of nature. Do you love panda bears? Do you love baby dolphins? Like, there's so many cool things here to love, and even if you can't commit to the whole scene with the human part of it, let's just forget about the human part of it. I'll tell you what, humans are good. Every human I've ever worked on at their core is a harmonious and beautiful being. We just get distortion and noise in the signal, and it brings out all this ugly stuff, but humans are good, and we are designed to be in tune instruments. And when humans are in tune and hanging out with other in tune humans, beautiful things happen. Grace happens. So yeah, so now we're connecting to the earth, and we're connecting to the other good humans here on earth, and entering into the state of grace that happens when we let ourselves connect to the earth, feel the love of the earth for us, and feel the love of our fellow humans for each other and for the earth. This is most of us, guys. And the more we amplify the signal of this, the more this will become our reality. So just feeling into just being connected to the harmony of nature. When we're done, go out and listen to the birds. Put your bare feet on the ground. Feel the love that's all around you. You know, we are swimming in a sea of love. The codes for harmony and for health exist within us and all around us. When we get the noise out of the signal, this is the truth of who we are and what this plane is. And the more we each dial into that and amplify that, the more we'll see that around us. Good. So sound just has the way, you know, to bring us into just a really, right? I can feel just the vibe with you and I and the space that I'm in just feels more calm, you know? Yeah. So simple, only took a couple minutes.
Eileen, thank you so much. Before you were to begin, I was thinking there's so many more birds. There's so many more birds singing than I remember before this all started. There's so much more, and perhaps it's also my heightened awareness from
No,
being.
everybody's saying that.
It's,
Everybody's noticing the birds.
it's incredible, and there's such a symphony of all different sounds and vibrations and beauty.
Yeah. I mean, that's my meditation, you know, it's to just go out and be with the birds and just listen and be. It's so beautiful. It's so easy. It's so free.
Thank you so much for the pioneering work that you've done, you're doing, the space you continue to hold for all of us. I can't wait for your fire music and your electric guitar. Um, just thank you for being a part of this sacred science of sound since its inception. It's a great joy to have you.
Nice. Thank you so much, Sherilyn. You know, I love everything you've done. I love the online one. I love the in-person one so much. And I've got such wonderful guests on this one and such lovely conversations. And I'm really grateful to be a part of it. So thank you for having me.
Mm. Sending you much love to Jamaica, and we'll see you sometime soon.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Thank you. Be
Thank
well, everybody.